All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Raphael Santana, who appeared on a previous episode not that long ago. We talked about wrestling, but one thing that me and Raphael didn't really talk about was his military service because that's where I met him in the first place. And he worked at Guantanamo Detention Center. The infamous Guantanamo Detention Center in Cuba. So he was a prison guard there. So we'll talk about that a little bit. So Raphael, why don't you kind of introduce yourself again?
Well, thanks for having me back, Todd. Raphael Santana. I just finished 20 years in the United States Navy. Two of my tours were in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, or shortened GITMO. Two tours there doing detained operations with the Joint Task Force Guantanamo. So we had a lot of the terrorists that were picked up after 9/11. So I did two tours there. My first tour was in Camp 6 as a guard. I worked there for about 10 months. And then my last 6 or 7 months, I worked in what's called escorts. So taking guys to their legal appointments or for their interviews or interrogations, but mostly just interviews, so, will blow your mind. Then my second tour was at a camp, Camp Platinum. So I really can't talk that much about that.
Why was it called Camp Platinum?
It's just a special place that high value guys are there. It's just
That's why they got the platinum status.
Yeah, platinum card, but not everyone has a platinum card. So I mean, yeah.
So when someone gets on as a prison guard at Gitmo, how does that work? Did you just get orders? I mean, I always got orders to go certain places, but is there more to it than that?
Well, back then, when Cuba was active and it was like a big deal after 9/11, you could pick there if you're a master at arms, or some other rate, you can get pretty much slam orders there. But they gave you what was called area incentive pay. So area incentive pay was you go look for orders, in your detail, and you see Guantanamo Bay. And if you're military police, you're gonna get those orders in anyway at the time. So you could bid. There's certain places in the world you can get orders where you bid. So like, hey, the max area incentive pay for Guantanamo Bay is $850, right? They always tell you, hey, just do the max bid because they need people there. So just max bid it. And so when you go there, you get $850 on top of whatever else you can pay. Your base pay, your housing allowance, if you're married. So at the time I was married to my wife, Myra. So I was getting housing allowance for Hawaii, cost of living allowance for Hawaii, family separation allowance for being away from my family, $850 on top of all that, just for being in Guantanamo Bay, due to the nature of the work. And the stress that you're dealing with over there. So that's you get the orders. Or if you're at the end of your negotiation window, you haven't picked the orders, you haven't got selected, they'll slam you, and then you won't get the 850. So a lot of guys, they just volunteer, pick the orders, get the money, do their 12 months or whatever they want to do, and then that's how you get it. Back then, now it's pretty much open like reservist. Active guys don't go there anymore unless you're like a supply area, you're an army guy. So
why is that? I'm
not sure why. The Navy had it for a while, and then they turned everything over to the Army for whatever reason. Can't tell you why. It's above my head. Bigger, they had more people able to go down there. I guess I don't know. When I was there, you had the Navy owned certain camps, and the Army owned certain camps. And for a while, the Navy had the bulk of the detainees, and then eventually they just turned it all over to the Army, and now it's just like a small Navy contingent that works there. I don't know anybody who's working the camps anymore. You can get orders like Gitmo, the base side, but the JTF is cordoned off another end of the base just for detained operations. I don't know what's going on there now. I don't know how they're doing operations. I don't know what's going on.
So that was like the first detention center you worked in, though, right? Or
yeah, it was the only one I worked in. So I was there from after I left Guam. So I was there from 2008 to like 2009, and then I left, and then I was in San Diego for like 2 years, and then 2 years to the day they sent me back for my second tour for what we call the individual augmentee billet and I was there for 9 months. So when I went back, they sent me to a different camp because I already been to the previous camps, and they're like, hey, you can't go back to that camp. You're what we call a retread, so you can't go back there. So I got these other, these other camp,
And when you get there, like, what's your impression of the place? Like, if you could kind of paint a picture for people that are curious about somewhere like that.
So yeah, so it's not that bad. So for my first tour there, what happened was you take your orders, you fly in. We fly into Mississippi. Gulfport, Mississippi was a pipeline. You fly to Gulfport, Mississippi. You get your uniforms, which is like soaked in DEET eventually for the climate in Cuba, which isn't that bad. But you get all your gear and stuff in Gulfport. Then they flew us to Fort Lewis, Washington, for like 30 days of training or 2 weeks of training. Just pretty much they hire a bunch of actors up in Washington, like Army guys. They pay them extra money. They come in on off time. They play detainee. They teach how to shackle, belly chain. They call every name in the book. Just get you prepped to get down there, right? It's a little bit more harsh in training than it actually is in GITMO. And then from there, you fly down to the island. You fly from Fort Lewis. You fly into Jacksonville or Mayport, and then from Mayport you fly into Guantanamo Bay, and they put you on a ferry. You go across the bay on the base. They put you in a bus. You usually get there late. When you fly, you get a little badge, clearance to tell what camp you're going to. So we get there at night, and I remember I wasn't really nervous, but all these guys were like all scared, because these are actual terrorists who kill people, right? Picked up, and everyone's all nervous in the bus, and they're all like listening to like music, and they're all like singing and stuff because they're all scared. It wasn't that bad. Just a bunch of weak-minded idiots on the bus. A plethora of them were, but yeah, you get there late at night. They put you in like a barracks. So a lot of barracks that you're in or camps or like old like refugee camps, and we had like the Haitians and Cubans come over, so you stay in those for a couple of weeks until housing opens up for you out on the base. Like we had like old houses they're going to tear down, they open back up, or you can live in a Connex box if you wanted to, or a trailer. That wasn't my thing, so I just went to a house. Then you get there, you get to the camp, you get assigned to the camp, you get your day in there, you do like you're shadowing these other guards, because what you learn in training, like how to do a search, you don't do when you get to camp, because then you end up pissing off detainees. It's like regular prison, I guess, or the county. Not much difference. Jail's jail, right? Detention center, what do you want to call it? It's the same mentality.
Yeah, but you're dealing with infamous people, so how is that kind of?
So like any other like prison system, some guys are probably there like just like luck of the draw. They don't even belong there. But for the most part, most detainees when you were there, it depends. They could sense out the weak-minded guys or guys who are soft. The big thing you had to worry about, depending on what camp you were in, was being assaulted. So the assaults down there consisted of, cocktails. So you get hit with feces, urine, semen. That was a big thing. And a lot of these guys, they love. Some of them love to paint the walls with their feces. Some guys went there mentally, like they were just some were like like 5150s, like crazy. So it just depends, like you have to observe all their like your religious rights, right? Because it's a big deal there, right? So we're down there. You can't touch the Quran because you're an infidel, right? You have to call, interpreter who's a Muslim to handle the Quran. Like, I want a Quran. Okay. They get books. They get like little treats, just like any detention facility. So you may get in there if you piss off a detainee that day, like you're on a shit list for whatever reason. A lot of them would flood their cells. They'll stick their foot in the toilet and flood it on purpose, just to water off. So the big thing was like getting assaulted. They love assaulting guards. But if you kept it pretty cordial, and you didn't go out of your way too much, and some guys are like Nazis to the SOP, and some aren't. So some guys will deviate from the rules, right? And then when they try to enforce the actual rule, you're caught right now. You're in trouble. Now they're gonna hold you to that, just like any prison system. Women didn't women either did really well there or they did horribly there because women were easy to target, right? Because they're women, right? So they're always picking on the chicks all the time. You know, I mean, it's the easy targets to assault. Whether it be, you know, body fluids or if you have to go in for a forced cell extraction or for guys, you know, playing sick and you get in there and the guy wants to fight you or fight, you know, you never go in there alone. You go in there at least, you know, 3 guys.
So even these like, you know, guys from the Middle East, they were doing a lot of that stuff, throwing stuff on you, even those guys?
Yeah, those guys, like, you would think, like, you know, when you look at, like, you know, they're like, and I'm not like trying to like, you know, like, because you have these are extremists. So like, before we go any further, I don't think like, I hate Muslims or anything, but these guys are extremists. But they're also big time. They're extremists and they're also like big time hypocrites, most of them. So like, you're a Muslim and you know you shouldn't be violent, right? But you're like, I mean, you're painting a wall with your feces. That's something an animal does, you know. I think what I was told was what I learned was a lot of these guys, they had their lawyers, and a lot of these lawyers they had were the same guys they had, the same lawyers that were used in like Ireland. You know, what are those guys called? They had terrorists in Ireland, you know, against the British, whatever. And those guys that had the same MO there. The lawyers like, yeah, go in there, play victim, you know, throw body fluids at these guys, and that's kind of a thing, I guess. That's what I heard. So like these guys, the same playbook from those guys. So like when people say now, after being in Guantanamo Bay, I learned like why like lawyers and attorneys are like shitty people. Like I get it. Like I totally get now why they are. People hate lawyers because they do stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it seemed like some of the stuff in Gitmo was depicted in the movie Zero Dark 30. I mean, did you see any of those kind of guys around there? Is that something you can even talk about?
Yeah. So I can't say like, you know, who I was guarding in my 2 tours there.
No, I mean, like, you know,
But
some of these guys that would come around who weren't prison guards necessarily.
yeah. There's a couple guys. There's some guys in there that you know, like maybe famous. If you watch a couple of movies, you'll kind of see them. Unless you were in the camp, you wouldn't catch some of the small things in that particular movie. But they're like dead giveaways. It's like plain sight. Like, yo, I know. Oh, okay, all right, well. But recently they released a few guys. I know they released some. I know, like I remember Obama released a couple of guys, right? And you're watching, like you're on Facebook, whatever. You watch the CNN, you're like, oh, you know, like we traded a bunch of those guys for that one piece of shit. What's that guy's fucking name? The guy who deserted and then he got caught by the town.
Bo Bergdahl, yeah.
Yeah, that guy. We traded that piece of shit for this handful of terrorists. And I'm like, yo, those guys are pieces of shit. Like, are you serious? Like, straight up. Some familiar faces. I mean, I can't remember the names because, you know, they're like Muslim names. But like, face-wise, like, yeah, man.
But I mean, when you saw that movie, for example, I watched that movie a whole bunch of times. What was your impression of that movie?
I mean, the movie doesn't really cover the camps. And I can't speak on like, so whatever you saw in the movie as far as
I don't know, just your overall impression. I'm not asking about specific things.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can go into a little bit specific. So like as far as like however they caught those guys and however they interviewed them or interrogated them, that's pretty. I believe that's pretty accurate. But once they in Cuba, that doesn't happen. That's all out the window. That doesn't happen. They get fair. You learn all the time in Cuba. It's fair, firm, and impartial. And when you get to Cuba, either your goal is get there and leave the same rank or above. But a lot of guys are leaving reduction in rate for infractions like they could be it wasn't like, do you remember the Abu Ghraib incident? That never happened in Gitmo because it was so like dialed in. You couldn't do anything. You're always on film. Like you had to like treat them fair, firm, and impartial. If you didn't, you pay the piper. So like the biggest thing that will get you hemmed up in Gitmo is if a guy commits suicide on your watch. That's a big no-no. If your guy commits suicide on your watch, you're done for. That's the biggest one. They'll get you. That's one you look out for. Your main goal is to treat them humanely and keep them alive. And a lot of these guys, they'll try to commit suicide. So you would have guys there that were like tube feeding. Their hunger strike forever. You have to feed them through the nose.
Yeah, I was actually reading about that today. I mean, and you know, how'd you guys? I mean, I was reading like you do it like with no like painkiller or nothing. Just kind of.
Like some of those guys have been there so long. At first, guards don't do that. They have like actual nurses that do that. And so like they would show up during the day and they would get, so if the guy didn't eat, if the guy refused a meal for like, 15 days, I think the numbers are 15 days or 10 days, they didn't eat. Hey man, if you don't eat this meal, you're gonna be tube fed, and then they had to eat a certain, and then they couldn't just like take a bite and be like, yeah, I'm done. Like they had to eat a portion of their clamshell, right? Like what's in their clamshell. If they didn't, they're okay, this guy, he's hunger striking, he's on this, whatever, after so many days, you get tube fed, and they would like, and you would sit there and watch the nurses. There was a specific group that was just doing it, and they would just sit there and like nothing, like the tube up the nose and the throat, and they'd run a sack of Ensure. And like Ensure, man, that'd keep you alive forever. Like these guys, some of these guys would just be on Ensure for years. That's all they had, Ensure. They just sat there with it, and some guys just do it themselves. Oh, it's okay, I'll do it. And they'll just run up their nose and then back their throat. And all right, run the IV, run the Ensure. Like that's hardcore, man. Cause I like to eat, but there's some hardcore dudes there. Like they're just like they fit the bill of extremists. Like I refuse to eat, and you can go ahead and tube feed me for the next 3 years. Like, yeah. So.
And like what was depicted in the movie, so they had like these guys who would come that maybe weren't military, and they would come get these people.
Well, the movie covered an aspect I wasn't part of it. The movie covered like special forces guys picking up these detainees, and then a certain agency holding these guys, holding them and getting info out of them to give them information. If you look on like Netflix, there's an actual like documentary where they're in Cuba. I was there when it happened, like when they did it. They're actually in the camp, like as a guard force, day-to-day type stuff. That's more what I'm involved in. I'm not involved with like, I was never involved with like special operations guys, kicking in doors and picking up as terrorists and bringing them to a black site. That movie, that part, I know nothing about that. Really can't speak on it.
Now, the documentary, what is it called? Do you know? Do you remember?
I can't remember the name. I think it's Guantanamo. I gotta look it up.
Were you on it at all, or?
No, because I worked by that time. I was in escorts doing like core-based hate visits, which taking their lawyer appointments or like phone calls or whatnot. So I was there, but I wasn't in that physical camp. I was working a different part of the camp. I wasn't in like Camp 6, but it's on Netflix, and you'll see like them going in the cell. I mean, they don't show faces, but you'll see like the guard, you'll see the detainee, like his face is blacked out, like, talking shit to the guard. They don't really go into the tier too much. You just kind of like you get like a one-way view of this guard being abused by this detainees. So they'll cover like day-to-day stuff. It's actually not a bad place. It's not a bad gig. Like when I wasn't working in the camp, I was, spearfishing or kneeboarding or fishing, so it was actually a pretty nice gig once you're not in the camps anymore. You're pretty much in a trouble island. Cuba's a really nice island. You're in Guantanamo Bay. You have everything at your disposal as far as free time. But you're tripped to the base. You can't leave the base, obviously. But great place to be. Just babysitting detainees, grown men.
You couldn't leave the base because it's just how the rules worked, or it wasn't safe, or what?
So now I'll take you a little backstory, like Cuba, right? So do you know anything about Guantanamo Bay? Like while we're there, how we acquired Guantanamo Bay?
Not precisely, but I know that obviously the detention center and the base have been there for a long time. But
yeah, so the base. So when we occupied the base, for how many years? I forget how many years. We've been there forever, right? Let's just say I'm not be specific because I don't know the exact. We had the base, and then there was obviously when Fidel Castro took power. So we had to deal with the Cuban government that was in Batista for so many years. We leased the base. It's actually leased. The base is leased, and we're there because obviously it's Cuba, communism, the history, whatever. And then the Castro took over, right? The Castro took over, and then they had the revolt. The Batista fled the island, and then you had this base with Americans on there. And the Castros, they had a few sailors and Marines, kidnapped them at the main gate for a while, demanding, U.S. give up the base and stuff. They didn't. Eventually, they returned the sailors and the Marines, and they cut off all supplies to the base. So the base is very self-sufficient because of the Cubans, right? So anyway, when we had this deal with Cuba, when it was like, hey, we pay you like, I think it's $1,000 a year in gold coins or $100, something, whatever the money was, right? I don't know what translate to today's currency. But my dog was check. Hey. So this is now watch is crazy. So anyway, when the Castros took over, right? We had a 100-year lease with this base, and when Castro took over, the lease was about to be up. The first year he was in power, we gave him a check, whatever it was, and he cashed the check. This is what I heard. He cashed the check, and we're like, you just validated the lease for another 100 years. That's how we do business, right? Really pissed him off. And after that, they say he's never ever cashed another check ever before. After that, he wouldn't take any money from the U.S. He was always complaining, like, give the base back to the Cuban people, blah, 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 right? So that base, and don't quote me too much, because I'm not a lawyer, but so those guys, when they had all these detainees, apparently all these terrorists, they had them keeping them wherever in, Iraq and Afghanistan, in these camps. They had to move them somewhere, right? So you couldn't move them to the U.S., I believe, right? Because if you move them to the U.S. and then you put them on trial, then they get our rights. They get the same rights to an attorney, all that stuff, apparently, right? But if you move them somewhere else, like Cuba's lease, it's not a U.S. territory, so they get nothing. So you put them on there, and then they get to, like, you could, whatever, I'm not gonna get too far above my head. We get to, like, they have the trials they have down there. The U.S. sets the rules, hey, this, and this, you can't do this. You still get lawyer rights, but you're not getting rights to, like, you're not getting what citizens get. So those guys are there, from the outside looking in, it's pretty fucked up when you think about it. Like, oh, wait a minute. So I'm on here, and it's like a neutral area, so I don't get these rights. And you can make it pretty much a kangaroo court. I'm not calling it a kangaroo court, but if it was me, I'd be like, yo, this is bogus. So I don't think most of those guys, leave there. I was there. I was there when President Obama got elected to office, and all these guys thought they were going home. They were happy he got in office. They were super happy. They're like, Barack. Okay, man, Barack, yeah, Barack. And I remember, I'll never forget, we're like, and I won't dive too much into politics, but you're in Navy, so you know certain things as far as leadership, right? And he's on TV, and he's like, I'm going to close Guantanamo Bay. I promise you. We're all laughing at him. We're like pointing the finger, laughing at him, because here we are. We're on the ground. We're not in politics. We're all a bunch of retards, right? And we're like, you never make promises, because we knew he couldn't close the base down. We knew he couldn't. And hey, he's he was in office for 8 years, and he's not in office anymore, and it's still open. So that tells you, like, how we're like we're there for, we're there for the long haul, man, like the long haul. So
yeah, and they could bring those guys in without, like, officially charging them, so it's kind of a good situation for them.
I don't know. They release more guys. Like, I don't keep up with it anymore, but they release more guys, but there's still guys that are there that are probably never going to leave. Never. Yeah. There's a couple of interesting stories there. Like, oh, these guys are there for this long. Like, yeah, they're probably never going to go home. And then the other guys, like, there's one group that was there. The way they got there was like, legit. And then it involved, another country. And it was, you learn a lot about our foreign policy when you're there. You're like, yo, how come this? Like, oh, this is messed up. Oh, well, that's how we do business. And I don't call us saints in the game, but we just.
Yeah, I read some stuff about how, some of the guys, I know one of the 9/11 hijackers who I think didn't get through the Orlando airport or something got sent down there, I know, or at least that's what they put in the stuff I read. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we'll talk offline later, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I saw they had like a number of guys listed, like high profile detainees, in Wikipedia, but I
Yeah,
didn't remember who they were. Various
yeah. So now
Islamists.
now it's pretty transparent. So I will tell you this. I remember I was in training in Fort Lewis, and I was sitting there, and we had these what they call SMEs, subject matter experts. And I was sitting there, and they're like, "Yeah, Guantanamo Bay, there are 6 camps, whatever." And I happened to be on my laptop, and I was on my laptop and looking at it, 6 camps, and I'm like, and it just so happened at the time, I guess somebody there was an article online, and I guess some admiral had leaked there's another camp there, right? And so I'm like, "Hey, you guys have 6 camps?" And they're like, "Yeah." "Well, it says here 7." And then they looked at me, "How do you know that?" "Well, it's right here on the internet, right here, that this guy said there's 7 camps." And they're like, "Well, we can't talk about that." "Oh, okay. All right, cool." And then when I went back years later, they were way more transparent as far as like how many camps, what profile guys are here. They won't give you names, but they'll tell you like, if you're in this camp right here, you're probably like this type of guy. And I'm like, okay. And it kind of answers the questions for me. But what was cool going back twice was I went the first time, you hear all like these secrets, and you're like, I wonder where this, where. And then when I went back, you go in this camp, it's like, oh, and then you get there, you're like, okay, this answered all my questions from my previous tour, which is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, you learn both those tours. You learn a lot as far as what we're doing down there and who's down there and like how business is going. The bulk of my first tour, I was on a forced extraction team, so the guy wouldn't give up a pepper or a spork, or he was getting a ruly, or he refused to come out of his cell for a cell search. We'd go get him. You call away like you had your first couple of days. You're on call if you're on the forced extraction team. You had the primary team, and then your second 2 days, if you're an alternate team, if it was getting crazy, you had to like earth more than 2-3 guys, and you had the secondary team, so you can do it in tandem. So you'd be working, and you have a radio, you have an earpiece. You do your guard route, and you'd be like, okay, these guys are on the first team, these guys are on the second team, and here's the word for today. If you hear this word, then you have to leave, and you have to go ahead and suit up, and you have to be prepared to go ahead and forcefully extract this guy. And like, okay, and you'd be working, and you'd hear a name, you'd hear the word, and all right, cool, and you just go suit up, and you march in, and you go there with 6 guys to pull this detainee out of the cell for whatever reason. My first forced extraction, the guy didn't want to go to court. So he had to go to court, and he was like, no, I don't want to go. And then we got the word, like, the form up, and then they're like, yeah, he says he's going to go peaceful. And then we marched to this guy's door, and the guy's bouncing off the walls. And I was like, he said he's coming out peacefully, and here we are, and he's ready to fight. And then we went in there, and he fought. I mean, he lost. He lost, right? Obviously. And then we put him in a van and sent him off to his appointment. And then I want to say an hour later, on the blotter, it's on CNN.
What, that he was on trial, you mean?
That he had to be forced to go to court.
Oh.
And he like, hey, they beat me up, and they did this and this and this. It's all like, BS, but they just don't tell a story. So I felt helpless. I'm like, hey man, you should have came out the cell. Should have came out.
So it's kind of like similar to a regular prison, basically. The environment.
Regular prison, but you can't have too much hands-on. And I think right before I left, when I got transferred out of the camp to work with escorts, they're like, hey, you in particular, you're like a dinosaur. We don't need your type anymore in the camps. You got to go. It's going to go a little bit more softer. And now, I mean, when I went back to my second tour, my old camp, I was like, whoa, it's all communal living. It's like Disneyland. Those guys. Yeah, man. And I mean, our tactiles we're paying for that. I don't know how many guys are left there now. I mean, there's probably a small footprint there, but they even have the old camps when they first got there. Because when they first got there, they had a camp X-ray. That's still standing. It was like in the woods, and then they built the Joint Task Force, and closed it. So, but the old camp was still there for court stuff.
I think they shut X-ray down though, as far as
They shut down. There's
being
no
there.
detainees in there, but it's the structure is still there. It's like being overgrown by grass and stuff, unless they tore it down the last 5-10 years. But I believe the structure's still there. If you're driving to like the main gate of Cuba, which you can't go out of, you'll see it on the right hand side or left hand side or something.
So the structures, is it like a makeshift prison or is it
It's
full
like
blown?
Yeah, so basically when X-ray was like built for like CBs and like Army construction guys, and it was a temporary fixture type deal. So it's like wood and metal outside, and then when they built a proper facility, they moved them from X-ray into the Joint Task Force part of the base, which they closed off, right, fenced off, and then they let X-ray just kind of like wither and just sit there.
And is there anything else you could say about Guantanamo that maybe we haven't covered that, might be interesting for people to know?
Yeah, there's multiple camps here. Those guys, they get treated well. So I'll give you an example. And when I say well, like they get treated better than like U.S. citizens, right? Like, I mean, I don't want to get into like who's rich or poor and all this nonsense, but like, for example, if I was in Cuba and let's say I blew my knee out, I needed an MRI, they had to fly me they would have to fly me to Mayport. I have to get a plane and go from Guantanamo Bay, fly to Mayport. Then an MRI machine on the island, but it wasn't for the guards. It was for anybody on the island. It was for the detainees. So the detainee had blew his knee out. He was right there. Boom. MRI. Okay, you have blown knee, and they'll fly surgeons in or whatever. Guard force, you gotta get off island. We'll do that off island. We're not flying to be out here for you. And then it wasn't a bad tour. It was pretty good tour. You just just follow that standard operating procedure. Don't deviate from it too much, left or right, and you'll be fine. But a lot of guys would deviate and get in trouble as far as breaking the rules or not following the rules, and that's how they get hemmed up.
And then you went to do some other stuff like in Bahrain, you said, with NCIS.
Yeah, well, I mean, when I left Cuba, I went to San Diego. I was in San Diego for 3 years or 4 years, and then while I was there for 4 years, I went from the IA back to GITMO at that other camp that I can't talk about. And then when I left San Diego, I went to Bahrain to do maritime security for like USNS ships. So any supply ships in the Middle East area and Middle East AOR required a 12-man team, required security because you had Iran taken. You had piracy, and then you had Iran kidnapping guys. Remember that the sailors they got picked up by the Iranians and held for like a few days or a week or so. Right, we're there for that because they'll pull over supply ships or oil tankers. But you're in Iranian waters, So I did that for 2 years, and then my last 2 years in the Middle East, I worked for NCIS doing what's called executive protection, personnel protection. So we had the Fifth Fleet Admiral, and he had a Secret Service type stuff for this admiral. So wherever he went, carry concealed, wear civilian clothes, and you just pretty much make sure nothing happens to him during your tour there. It's a 1-year tour. I was there for 2 years doing that job, and you pretty much just chauffeur this guy around and make sure nothing happens to him. Pick him up for work, bring him home from work. Take him to events. If he's traveling anywhere in the Middle East, you go out ahead of time, get him all settled, routes, some pretty high speed stuff compared to like, detainee operations. Really nice gig. Probably the best job I ever had in the Navy. So, drive fast, carry cool guns. We carried like a Mark 18 and MP5s and big 228s. Had on range time, civilian clothes, everyone hated you. You get an NCIS credential, called high speed. Pretty nice.
Kind of like that movie about the guys at the embassy in Libya, those security guys.
Yeah, those guys are badasses, man. Those guys are a little bit more. I don't know. Those guys are like contract. Yeah, yeah. Well, the two guys. Yeah, so like the two guys who like let that guy get dead. The ambassador. Like, yeah, that's the job we did. So if your principal dies on your watch, that's not a good thing. And I'm not saying anything bad, but like that's those two guys, those are State Department guys, I believe, and those guys have that protection school. So they, because you have like three places that are recognized for actual protection in the U.S. You have Secret Service, State Department, and the training I went to. So, but yeah, if your principal dies, that's not a good thing.
I don't think it was their principal. It was the opposite, right? The ambassador was at another location than those guys.
No, so if you watch the movie, right? If you watch the movie, you had the guys who were at that site that they shouldn't be there, right? And then there were two guys who were actually attached to that.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Oh, those two guys. So yeah, that's kind of the job I did. So I had an admiral. We had more than two guys though, and it's Bahrain, so like we're pretty much there because you have Iran other side of the water, and it's the Middle East, man. It's kind of like a shit show. So you have all kinds of threats. There's not too many threats in Bahrain towards that guy, but it could be collateral damage, and there's always like a little small threat in that area. Or if you go somewhere like we go to Saudi Arabia, we go to Pakistan. Those dangerous places, man. So.
Yeah, I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while, so yes.
Yeah, that's right.
It's kind of unique for sure.
Were you at in Saudi?
I was in a place called Dhahran, but I lived on a compound, so it's pretty boring. But I mean, when you went off the compound, there was quite a bit of, it was more just people doing, more like regular Saudi Arabia, I would say, like.
Yeah, people don't realize how good we have it in the U.S. Like I remember I was in Riyadh, and I don't know if you remember when the new prince took over or whatever. This was like a couple years ago. He took over. It was this big shakeup. It was a big shakeup of the royal family, and then he arrested a bunch of these guys in the government. I don't know if you remember that. He arrested a bunch of the royal family, and he put them in jail in the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh, and I stayed there. I stayed there for one of these trips. I know I know some of the hotel staff there, and they house these guys in jail in this the Ritz-Carlton. So that Ritz-Carlton was supposed to be one of the king's palaces, and he didn't want it, and the Ritz-Carlton bought it. They put these guys there. They held them there. But like I remember getting there the first day I flew in. I get picked up from the airport by the embassy guys and military, some Navy guys work at the embassy, dropped me off so I could do my site survey and stuff for my boss to show up. And I remember I was downstairs and I wanted to get a coffee, and I was in line to get a coffee, and this British guy rolls up on me. He's, "Hey, how you doing, mate?" And what's going on, man? And he was in this study. He was on a detail, but he spoke Arabic. He goes, "Hey, man, you're on the wrong side." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "This is the family side. You can't be on this side, right? You belong on the other side with single men. And people without families." I'm like, "Whoa." And like, "Yeah, over here is women and families, and over here is, so you're on the wrong side." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I had to go over to that side and buy my coffee. And then, and this is the big ass lobby at the Ritz-Carlton in Riyadh. And then, like you go to a hotel, you can pretty much get free reign of the hotel. But in Saudi, they have those religious police. So like you couldn't go to like different floors. And there's no like picking up women, right? That's a big no-no. If you get caught with that, they'll put you in jail. So there's none of that going on. Very, very strict Islamic law in Saudi. You have the regular police, you have the religious police, and they have all these rules in place. You can't do things. Every time you're out there, you gotta be careful. You can't take pictures like in the U.S. because that's offensive.
Yeah, I mean, I went through all that where they. Yeah, I've been told don't take picture of this or don't take picture of that. Mostly mosques and things like that. There were lots of places where we took pictures, like when we played sports and baseball, soccer. There were all kinds of places where we did take pictures, but yeah, there were places where they told us not to. And man, I could tell you some. I mean, I've seen all kinds of crazy. I remember the first day we got there, or maybe a couple of days into it, we were staying in a hotel. They put us in a hotel, pretty nice hotel, and we decided to get it, or it might have been like a hotel apartment type deal. So we didn't have a TV in there, and we went to get a TV, and back in the day they had the TVs, the backs of them were like this wide, right? And so we're in the store, and this thing, it looks like it weighs a million pounds. And we're like, well, how do we get it back to the hotel, And the guy literally, he calls out this guy, he like, does this thing. And this guy comes out, he looks like a hunchback, like he looks like a midget hunchback, and he strapped it on his back and he walked with us all the way to the hotel with this thing strapped on his back, like hunched over,
That's about right, yeah.
And the guy looked like he was 1,000 years old, It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But yeah, you see a lot of stuff there that you wouldn't see in the US. Like just I remember one time my dad had this real nice video camera that, I don't know, for some reason he broke it within like the first couple days trying to mess with it or whatever. So we went back out to Cobar where we had bought it. And the guy was like, oh yeah, I remember you, And like in America, they're going to ask for a receipt. He just turns around. And he's like, get this guy another camera. Here you go. Bye-bye. It didn't ask, didn't ask to prove that it was broken. My dad just said, this doesn't work. Okay, no problem. Goodbye. See you later. They did all sorts of stuff like that, and it was more of a man's place for sure than for women, especially when I was there,
Anywhere in the Middle East, I had when I was working in Bahrain, and I had the 2 years I was doing the maritime security, a lot of ship places, right? And at one point, I was a first class, I was E6, but my boss was a female, and whenever we went to the airport for anything, they would never talk to her. They'd come straight to me, and she would be mad at me. She would attack me. I'm like, hey, I can't help it. Like, I can tell them all day you're in charge, but they're not gonna talk to you. Mm-hmm. And she's dumb as fuck. She just wouldn't get it. I'm like, they're not gonna talk to you. You're a chick. Like, why don't you just realize this? Like, I don't want to be like a pig to her, but I was just like, hey, they're not gonna deal with you. I don't care. You can talk to them blue in the face. They're not gonna deal with you because you're a woman. Just, she's so power hungry. I'm like, yeah. Once I told her, dumbass. Of course, she made senior chief. Retard. I said, I'm tired now. Well, she kissed my ass. But yeah, retard.
Most people listen probably don't even know what a senior chief is.
I mean, I'm sure someone's probably listening, like, well, how dare he? Like, yeah, I fucking said it, so what? Catch me outside or something. I don't know, whatever the kids see these days.
Now, I met Raphael in wrestling. We're kind of, maybe we'll transition a little bit into this out of the military stuff, but, did you watch any of these recent UFC events or?
I work Saturday nights now, so I mean, I don't get to I haven't really, I wanted to watch this last fight, and I had to work, and I was like, do I watch this fight or do I call for work? Is it worth? I mean, I make $504 a night, so I was like, is it worth me losing $504 for this UFC fight? Nope. And like I said, recently it's been so flooded with, there's more talent, but it's just, there's so many fights now. I can't even keep up. I mean, I know the Stylebender guy fought the other night, and he fought, what was that kid's name? The kid lost.
Yeah, Paulo Costa.
Yeah, like, it's just hard to keep up with now, man. I don't know who's who anymore. I don't know what wrestlers are out there right now. I mean, definitely not Ben Askren. I think Askren's done, right? We talked about it before. He's done.
Yeah, he's been done for a little bit.
Poor fighter. Who are the top wrestling guys now? I mean, I can't even remember who's out there right now who's worth the damn wrestling wise.
Well, Chimaev's, Kamzat, obviously, but
besides, those guys, besides the Chechens, I mean, who else is out there? I mean,
Americans, I mean, not really. I mean, Cejudo kind of retired, and
well, he is retired now, or is he coming back? I've heard like whispers of him coming back.
He hasn't fought since he said he was retired, so I'm gonna assume he's retired until I see otherwise. There's not really many American wrestlers that stand out,
Yeah, nothing really catches my attention these days. I'm like, no, there's no one really. Nothing worth my. I'm all about wrestlers. I just don't really see anybody out there who's, making an impact these days. I'm sure. I mean, like we talked before, everyone's caught with the wrestling now. It's being a wrestler isn't that big of a deal anymore. I don't think.
Well, maybe some guys can still make it work. So
yeah, some guys can, but if you're a wrestler and you can't, even if you're a dominant wrestler and you're just taking guys down, laying weights to them, you're not going to make it. I don't think. I mean, eventually, Dana will cut you for being boring as fuck. That's what I think. If you're
Khabib has managed to do it.
yeah, but I'm talking about Americans right now. We know the Chechens get it done, right? Because they're just like they're relentless dudes. But Americans, there's no exciting Americans. I mean, I hope I'm wrong, but nah.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of changing. I mean,
You
there
know what
really isn't anybody that stands out in the UFC from the U.S. wrestling wise that I can.
you mentioned the Chechens.
Not anyone new, at least.
Yeah, you keep mentioning the Chechens, but hey, I guess the puppy wants to chew my cord. You mentioned the Chechens, but I mean, are they really wrestlers? I mean, they're sambo guys. They fight. They have. That's why they're so good because it's like no transition for them. They fight. They punch. They do all that already. So it's not really. They're not like core wrestlers, right?
I don't know. I've seen a lot of Chimia footage of him in a singlet. Like just doing straight wrestling.
Yeah, but they are. But like I said, they're core sambo guys though. So I mean, wrestling is part of their culture and fighting. So it's not like a big.
I think it's kind of like Cuba. Some of them get directed into sambo. Some of them get directed into wrestling.
Yeah.
Some of the guys from Dagestan do more striking in fights. So I think they get pushed kind of in whatever direction they're good at.
Yeah, I don't know anybody, American-wise. I mean, I'll look on your, I do. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll look on your page. I'll look on your Facebook to see like what's going on. Like, hey, it's much easier. Like, okay, if Todd says this guy, and I know, and a couple hoops that were on, I don't really see much. Honestly, I don't see much like mention too many guys. And the last thing I saw was that black belt issue that they were having. We saw recently, but that doesn't cover MMA. That's really jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu. Who cares?
Yeah, I don't really want to get into that con. The con. Was it McDojos? Yeah, get that shit out of here, man.
Well, I think it's just IBJJF kind of like I can't even keep up with all that. That's a whole nother ball of wax. You gotta, Pandora's box.
Yeah, they make up their own rules. How many different organizations are there? It's IBJFF. What's another one?
I don't even keep up. I only watch like if there's a no-gi match that I think is interesting, with someone who's high profile. But even now, I used to like to watch the Eddie Bravo Invitational, but even that's kind of died off a little bit. I think he kind of he did the combat jiu-jitsu, which I think took away from it, in my opinion.
Okay.
It was a lot more interesting when he was just doing the EBI, but it's hard to do something like that, and you're trying to compete with mixed martial arts, so it's a hard thing to follow.
Eddie Bravo's, I like his. I mean, I like the system a little bit, right? I think it's great for MMA, but I don't have that flexibility. I can't be doing mission control and fucking choke guys out with my fucking shin or some shit. I can't do that shit. But I think for MMA, it's probably the best system for MMA. I don't know about now. Maybe it's new stuff I don't know about, but like, I don't like being on my back. But if I had flexibility and I could be on my back, I'd be an Eddie Bravo guy all day. All day.
I don't think you're seeing many jiu-jitsu guys have much success, honestly. I mean, it's not like it was before, where guys can kind of stay in those positions.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I liked about that position was, the only thing I liked about the Eddie Bravo thing was, I think it was that system was, if you end up on your back, that's the best place to be because they can limit a lot of damage, right? Because they have that like BJ Penn to play it right. He's not taking too much damage down there. That part, not for submitting whatever. I'm talking about like damage wise. I think if you have flexibility, because if I'm on the bottom. I'm not trying to submit a guy down anyway. I'm trying to sweep or stand up. And I think that's the best system if you have the flexibility. Versus,
Yeah, I agree for sure.
I remember rolling a couple of those guys in Guam, and they kind of had some of this is down, and I'm like, fuck, I can't hit this fucking guy. I'm like trying to waste this guy, and I can't hit him because I'm too busy defending these submissions, or he's got me in this weird where I can't get to him, you know. And I'm like, man, this is nice. Oh, now you try Raph. I'm like, I can't get my leg up that far. I'm too big, or I'm not flexible like that.
Well, there's ways around everything, so
Yeah,
just a matter of time.
yeah. For a while, you were like, yeah. I remember you were the turtle guard guy for a while.
Yeah.
God,
I think out of necessity, probably.
I hate that, man. I'm a turtle guard. Like, oh, here we go. He's the fucking. I know a few guys who did that shit too, man. I'm like, man, that's right. You can't hit this guy. All he's doing is turtling on me. I can't do anything. You have to just get up and just kick him in the face. You can't even do that anymore, I don't think.
So, kind of winding this down, maybe if someone was wanting to do kind of some of the stuff you did in the military, what would you say to them, or
As far as
what
career,
would you suggest for someone who's wanting to go into the military, maybe?
oh man, going into military.
Maybe especially today, because you got out recently. I've been out for a long time.
Yeah, um, I would say going into the military now is it depends on the personality. I'm kind of old school, right? I mean, I'm not that old, but it's a lot softer now, right? It's a lot softer. I mean, I love the guy I live with now, man. He's just like, yo, I can't do this anymore. It's really watered down. I'd recommend not joining the military, man. If you're if you're like sensitive, and I wouldn't do it. I would stay away. It's not the same. It's almost becoming corporate. It's like if you want to come to the military, go all in. Be hardcore. Do some combat stuff. Be specific. But just to go in as a job, you're gonna hate it. I think it's just not what it used to be. I mean, the great benefits and stuff like that. You get travel. It depends what you're looking for. If you want to travel the world and do all this cool stuff, join the Navy, pick a cool rate. Like I was in military police, right? Master arms, right? You can get stationed anywhere you want overseas. There's nowhere you can't go. If that's what you want to do, cool. Do that. But do it, and that. But now, actually, no. I would say go in now because now it's a lot better. Now you can do 10 years and get out and have a lot of money in your pocket and go do something else and roll it into. That's the cool thing now. And then pretty soon they'll do 15-year retirement. So what I'm hearing. There's no more that high through retirement now. Now it's a blended retirement system. So when you go in, you put into like a 401k or TSP, and after 10 years you get so much money. It's a lot better. You don't have to do 20 years anymore. You do like 10 years.
Yeah, but you're probably not going to get very much.
No, it's a good deal, man. Look up. It's a good deal. So like, if they had this deal we were in, you would have done 10 years and you would have gotten out with a little bit of some cash in hand, and you would have transitioned to something better. So it's not that bad actually. It's actually pretty good. It's a good deal, especially if you want to do 20 years, go do 10 years. Do 10 years, get stationed somewhere cool. Put into that TSP, and then after 10 years, you get a nice little lump sum of money. It's a sweet deal for a 10-year deal. 20 years.
But I'm talking about a retirement, a lump sum. Yeah, but I'm talking about get money for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you can do 20 years and do it and get a retirement. I'm not too privy on what the and like my roommate, he's a blended retirement guy. Like it's kind of bad. You still get a retirement at 20 years. But it's not the same retirement system. Like I'm a high 3, so my retirement, it's not a whole lot for being an enlisted guy. But now you can get your retirement plus, it's actually getting pretty competitive with the civilians now. So you can get your retirement plus it'll be a little lower rate, but then you get more money as far as like
the civilian world. It's hard to get retirement in any job almost.
Yeah.
Unless you're willing to pay for it yourself, like do it yourself retirement.
I don't know, man. I did my, I did 22 years, and I wouldn't change anything, but I think I would change is like do 10 or 15 to get out, because like now I'm older, so now for jobs now, like people won't hire me because they think I'm old.
Yeah, maybe that's why they give people retirement after 20 years because they can't get any more work.
Yeah, it's like, oh, we don't want to hire you. They don't like, they don't hire me. Like, oh yeah, I know since they think I'm old, but I smoke all their kids in their PE test. But that's the only thing I would have changed in the military. But it's kind of it's on me. I should have just gotten out early and or stayed out and on another job.
Yeah, it takes some work to do, but yeah, it takes time, I guess. But
Like now I'm out. So yeah, now I'm opening an off-road shop, so that's cool. Another source of income, hopefully, takes off.
what kind of shop is that?
Off-road shop. So lift kits, wheels and tires, trucks. We're gonna do tours. Yeah, you see my Facebook page, or my Instagram page. You see me out there, all in the woods.
What's it called?
Called Sacramento Off-Road Solutions, or SOS. We open October 5th. Check us out if you're up in the Sacramento area or the Bay Area. Come on out.
How are you going to take people on tours, though, during this time? All this COVID stuff.
No, the outdoors are open. You can go outdoors and wear a mask and stuff like that. But this whole pandemic hit, I was good. I'm still going to the woods. They can't stop me from doing that. But then these fires hit in California. So now you can't camp in California, but it's about to cool off. Once it, it'll be fine.
Well, it sounds good, Raphael. Appreciate you doing the show again, and talking about the Guantanamo and everything, and thought it was some good information.
Yeah, man. Any more cool military topics, man, hit me up. I'd love to come back.
Sure thing. I'd love to do it again.
All right, man. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate it. Take care.